Okay, I don't see Madhuri yet. Okay, we'll give couple of minutes, Akhil, for others to join.
Yep. Hi, Madhvi. She can't listen us, is it?
I think she can. I have to give her the mic. Give me a minute. Okay, she's on mute. Madhuri, can you hear us? You can type yes if you can in the chat. Normally, I should get the option to give them mic. Only I think when we invite them to stage, we can. Let's see. User cannot be invited. Okay, she is on mobile. Okay, we'll get started, Akhil. So, again, we are starting off with the second session of Seekers, the Book Readers Club, and today we will be talking about tribal leadership. And before we start, let's play an interactive video on our introducing our book club. And this particular session is sponsored by Digital Agility Institute, and we will look at what they do. Okay, so the formality is done. Akhil, maybe we'll start with a quick introduction of yourself. So, Akhilesh Chaturvedi is my coach, and we have been together for last 7 to 8 years now. Thanks for coming over here, Akhil, and trying to share your wisdom. It's wonderful to have you here. Awesome. And maybe if you want to share a few more things about yourself.
It's pleasure, Nivarti, working together and seeing people joining us and taking interest to read books and share their thoughts and the wisdom. Yeah. And I think it's it's so powerful to share and learn with each other. Yeah, and I believe in that for many years now. And I'm hoping that this community of readers and seekers and the learners will grow in times to come. Let's get started with the book.
Wonderful. So we'll start off with the topic of the day. Again, it's, as I said, tribal leadership.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to share my screen, Akhil, as we speak.
yeah.
Okay. So,
I'm not able to see that. Okay, some other slides.
yeah, sorry, too many things here.
Yeah.
So, can you see my screen, please?
Yes, yes, I can see if you can put together in the presentation mode.
This Mac.
Hmm, very nice.
Okay, so tribal leadership. This is a book written by Dave Logan, John King, and Halle Fisher. Halle Fisher Wright. And the book talks about how a leader can build a team from a kind of stage one to stage five, which again we will dig deeper through Akhil. And it also helps us understand what indicators can tell us which stage the leader or the teams are and how we can then move to the next stages as well. And the important reason why we are trying to look at this book, and before we get there, it would be great if you want to add in the chat window what are your personal learning objectives that you are here for. And Akhil, while they are trying to do that, what is your view? Why are you here for?
Yeah, the first book which we did when we started this was about the pause principle, right?
Yeah.
So when I paused and looked at that, where exactly we are going to start? So this is a community we are trying to build together to learn and grow. Yeah. And when I started looking at that, um, it made a lot of sense for me to look at the tribal leadership, which is becoming very prominent across the agile and the DevOps world. And a couple of years back, um, there was IT Revolution DevOps Summit, the Enterprise DevOps Summit, and there's a lot of buzzword around the tribal leadership and how it is going to help the organizations in the agile and the DevOps world. So that made me to think through why we should do this, because we are all going to create a community and we are going to work in the DevOps and the agile world, and it's becoming very prominent to understand why it is. Hari and others, if you want to share your thoughts about it, that what is your learning objective, it will be really nice.
Hmm. Okay, so while they're doing that, we can move ahead, Akhil. And one of the reasons why we are also looking at this book today, and this may be looking like a little bit report from the past, but I don't think things have changed much even in the recent times. When you look at the State of Agile report, one of the leading causes of failed agile projects is lack of experience with agile methods, lack of support for cultural transition, which majorly is talked about in this book, right, Akhil? And also, one of the barriers that we see here clearly highlighted is about 55% of organizations and people feel that the ability to change organizational culture is one of the major barriers. That means people are struggling to understand what culture is and how we actually look to transform the culture within an organization, what role leaders could play, where they could contribute, and all of that, right? So this is one of the major reasons we are looking at. And also, if you look at the bottom, the key reasons why we are looking to highlight the learnings through this book, leaders are not able to set up the right culture and mindset required for organizations to not just transform, but even after transformation, sustain the transformation as well. The second element, organizations are struggling to continuously improve, which means when there are multiple priorities within the organization, that means when there is no clear alignment at various hierarchies within the organization and the teams start getting conflicting directions, conflicting vision, or conflicting priorities to manage, and that also would mean that team would struggle to understand where their focus should be, where their attention should be. And what do we think is needed is a change in leadership style. How do we exhibit leadership? What is the new leadership style, new leadership qualities, the way to lead people that needs to change and what it would be? And we will also dig deeper into how do we develop that. And Akhil, with that, I'll probably hand over the stage to you to take things forward from here. And probably if you like to share your screen, or you want me to share.
You continue from there, and maybe I will speak from here.
Okay, great. So, okay, so moving on to the next slide. Yes.
Yeah. So if you can go back a bit. Yeah. Um, so if you, Nivati, when you spoke about the change, right? The change is a cultural change. Actually, is becoming significantly important in the organizations, and the cultural change from the lens of the leadership. And most of you agree that the change, cultural change, is basically has to be driven most of the time to be driven from the top down, right? So if the culture you want to make changes, the leaders should change. And um, and then that is what we are going to talk about in the next slide. If you can put together, many of you are aware of the AOL, and the AOL, if you look at, they were the one where the pioneer organizations in the 90s, late 90s, and that was a pioneer, and they have acquired uh, a media company, um, and they made sure that they grew up leaps and bounds, and they were like of 90s Google and Facebook at that point of time. And the success behind that was the person who was involved with that, the leader who was involved that, and that him was Steve Case. And what was his vision? His vision was making the internet into the home utility, and he bought Times Warner Entertainment Media and created the revolution. After some time, after a few years down the line, the AOL declined. And that decline, if you look at the reason behind that, because Steve Case moved away, departed from the AOL. What was happening out there, that when he was working with AOL, he ensured that his vision was achieved by his team members as long as he was physically present in the AOL. In that process, he worked with the people. He made sure that he was important. He did build a group of people who shared the ownership for the success of his goal. It was his goal, and he made sure that the people followed the shared ownership for that. And once he left, people were lost. They don't know what to do with that. And they were waiting for the new leaders to move ahead. What I'm trying to say is that here the leader was playing a very significant role. Now let's look at the other side of it. If you will, there is a football called Barcelona Football Club. It's a Spanish club. And if you recall, Barcelona, from the decades together, they have been continuously being in the top, and that is because it's not led by one single individual. It is not the group of the people led by one single vision. It is continuously changed, continuously led by the players, by the managers, by the coaches, and the club officials. And then the reason for the phenomenal success of the last 2 3 decades is about the culture which they have instituted, the organizational identity which they have built for themselves. The organizational identity has become very important. The people that if you are part of that particular club, be it player, be it coaches, be it managers or the club officials, or even the sports enthusiast who is associated with Barcelona FC, is that I'm associated with that. There is an immense pride to be associated with that, and that pride is that we are on the top, right? There is a we. If you look at from the AOL to the Barcelona Football Club, there is a shift from the I to we. There is a collective sense of who we are that is imbibed in all the players, in the managers, in the coaches, and that's the reason why the Barcelona Football Club is very successful, and even though they had all the technical advantages, they were not able to do that. Yeah. Um, yeah. Now, the other reason why we think that this particular book is very important, when you look at our own organizations where we are working, the Agile and the DevOps world. Nivardi, if you could put in the presentation, please.
Yeah,
So,
I'm struggling a little bit with the Mac.
hmm.
Give me a moment. You can continue, Akhil. I'm just trying.
Yeah. So, if you look at the millennials who are becoming the core of our work, right, today, mostly, isn't it? M- And then millennials has a very high level of aspirations. They're not working with any organizations because they just wanted to make money or they wanted to make living out of working. Right? They are looking for pride. They are looking for passion. They wanted to be passionate about whatever they are doing. And also, if you look at that, the place where we are working, it is becoming the social institutions where everybody wants to achieve bigger and the larger. And how do you achieve the bigger and the larger? How do you make the sense of the pride, the passion, the pride is protected or enhanced? Is all about in this book. If you use it, you will make it. Now, there is another thing which we researched and then found that the people, if you wanted to lead them, there is a shift in the organizational style required. And we always talked about that, hey, the traditional way of working earlier, the command and the control, is not necessarily going to be applied in the Agile and the DevOps world or the day we are working together in the agility space. And therefore, we shifted the leadership style. We made it more of the coach, more of the goodwill, more of the we. Um, and we have shown that we have put together um, ourselves in the front and showed the people that this is how exactly it has been done, led by the examples. All that we have done very nicely. And when I started reading this book, I said I was feeling, and I think we discussed also, Nivarti, that there is something more that needs to be done. It's just not about you as a leader who have this particular ability, or the few of the leaders who are leading this company, which is important. But here the shared responsibilities, shared wisdom, shared leadership is very, very important. And that made me to say that this books provides you a good guidelines that how can you build the new organizations where the aspirations of the people are fulfilled, where we are able to ensure that bigger success for everybody is granted. If you can move to the next slide, Nivarti. No, this book, when you read the first few pages in introduction, you will be so surprised. And it's written by by Tony, who is CEO of the Japos.com, one of the great organizations. And he writes his in one pager introduction in this book that uh, you know they had a priority that they wanted to build the culture. They felt that the company brand and its culture is the two side of the same coin. And he realized, when he read this book, he realized that whatever he is practicing in his organization, actually it is written in this book. And he invited the authors to come and work with them for a very long time. Yeah. And when you read this book, you will find, and which he talks about the stage 4 behaviors and the triading and all of that. It's a very powerful tools which has been provided, and that excites. So the culture builds your brands, and that's a culture change from the different style of the leadership is the day which we are looking for. And if we change that particular culture, I think the digital transformation or the agile transformation, what we saw in the slide, the agile organizations struggle to be a truly agile, is can be achieved. Now, I don't think we have more people, isn't it? We can just go skip that particular slide and we can move to the next one. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, when I was going through this book, I said, okay, what is what is a tribe? And then search the dictionary, and you will find that it talks about there is a there is a community which is linked by the social, by the economic, by the religious, or the blood ties. So there is a social, could be economic, could be religious, or could be a blood ties. They all have the common culture and the dialect. That means talking about the culture and the language. Typically, have a recognized leader of that particular community. Not when you look at this book, the Dave Logan, the author of the book, talks about a naturally occurring group of 20 to 150 people, self-assembling group of 200 to 20 to 150 people. A small company, it could be a small company, it could be a department of a large organization or a company or a cross-functional group working on a value stream. And each one of them have a something in common. And that's what he calls as a tribe. It that you need to put together 20 people to 150 people. It need not have to be employees or just working on the value stream or that particular group. It talks about it could be partners, it could be customers, or it could be friends, or could be family members as well. So this tribe is not just the company employees, but it could be partners, customers, friends, and the family, right? And he says that if you want to test your tribe, you belong to that particular tribe. He says that who know each other enough that if they randomly saw another walking on the street, they would have stopped to say hello. So that's the connection they would have built among these 20 to 150 people. Now, that's what we are trying to talk about. Now, the question comes that we have so far in our world, we have been talking about teams. And if you look at teams are typically 9 to 11 people, two pizza, and that was picked up by Amazon CEO from one of the books which he read, and that became very powerful. And it has been spoken in many of the team development, team coaching books. Now here we are talking about, if you are talking about a tribes, then it is kind of multiple of teams and the number of teams, because if you multiply 9 into 2. Now the question is, why 20? Why there is a question, why there is a 20 people that requires, and he talks about the dynamics changes the moment you become 20. There is a different kind of dynamics that shifts. And that's the reason why he talked about that the dynamics is required to be built outside of this 9 to 11 members teams, because at the same time, if you look at the DevOps world or the agile world, it's not that you are whatever the stories or whatever the epic that you are working on is enough. You have something more. You have something more to work upon. You have to be depending upon some other groups. You have to be working with the infrastructure guys who are not part of your entire team. They are part of the value stream from business to operations, or maybe the customers who is giving the feedback, or maybe the partners who is supporting you doing something. So that way he talks about that you need to build the tribes to be a successful and creating the much success for all of us together.
Yeah, great, Akhil. So I think there is also a view coming from Hari here.
Mhm.
So Hari is talking about somehow the concept of triads is not utilized in agile community as part of agile transformation journey. Maybe it will just, you know, let's try and bring him on stage as well and understand what is his view when he is saying that, triads are not used in the
Yeah.
concept of agile transformation journey.
So we will talk about how can we do that for sure, and we will be very happy if um,
I'm just sending an invite to Harry and see if
yeah.
he can join us. Hi, Harry. Welcome to the session.
Hi, Nibati. Hi, Akhil. How are you guys?
Good, 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 good.
We are doing great, and you brought in an important point here, saying okay, somehow the concept of triads. While we hear tribes a lot, right, in the transformation journey, especially whoever talks about Spotify model, I will not call it a framework. You hear that tribes being referred to a lot, but you are also saying triads is not utilized in the agile community as part of agile transformation journey. So what's your view there?
Um, what I'm saying is that see anything that you work as small, any transformation. Say, if my experience, if you wanted to build a enterprise transformation, you need to build a core team for this transformation. This core team has to be a representative of a cross section of the entire organization, and each of these small subset. I would call it as a three-member team could take up a certain initiative. When a small initiative, if coached properly and if put the values properly to them, they can produce extraordinary results. Um, 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 Taking from the concept of this 90-day period, if you're actually taking that on and really building small success initiative with the triads, the transformation would be much more faster. That's my and the reason why I said triad is because it is difficult to break the relationship in a triad. If you observe closely, if you have the proper value system put in place, because you will be watched by the other. If somebody is working on this in the right way, right values, what happens is then you will be having somebody watching over every time, right? So it is like dyads, or two people will can always have a difference in opinion. You can always break the relationship easily, but you cannot do that in a triad if you properly do in the right way. That's what I said. The triads are probably not used effectively in enterprise transformation, because if you used it's quite powerful from my thinking process, and a little
Hmm.
bit of experience that I tried a few years back with it.
And also probably that is due to the limited communication channels we have when it is a triad, right? As
Yeah.
against the greater group of people that we refer to, because a lot of distortion or noise comes as we increase the number of communication channels in the system.
Yeah, and it is also if they are when I did an lean product development transformation, I tried the concept of triads to build small initiatives with cross-functional teams from different regions, and they would actually come together, and you would be given one small initiative that they could take from their area of expertise or their area of influence. I would say not really expertise, but their area of influence, but they could pick up that and then drive for a specific period of time and create really good significant results from that, provided you are having a mechanism to really coach them and then bring them together and facilitate the space for them to really take it on.
Yeah,
Hari,
I agree. Yeah, Akhil.
Hari, I think we will talk about that in a while, and that if you can hold on, and I would love to have your video on.
Sure.
Um, we need to understand what is meaning of the triad,
True.
right?
Yeah.
That's not understood well,
Correct.
and I think if you can hold on for some time, and then we'll go there and talk about it. So let's go through these five stages, and we'll talk about that. Okay, so why it is not done, and why it is so important for us to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what that you is a very simple. It's not that it's a rocket science to do that, right? Only thing is that, am I comfortable doing it? Am I trying to do that? Yeah. uh, and so let's wait for a few minutes, and then I think we can go there and we talk about it. Yeah.
Sure.
And I please be on air.
Sure.
Yeah. So let's go to so what is so let's understand what is tribal leadership. Um, if you look at the tribal leadership, it's a very simple three things, right? And you are online. The communication, and I say that the tribal leadership is the three C's: the communication among the people, and where the, as you write, a triad is going to come. It creates a different kind of a communication when there is a triad, right? And collaboration. So how people collaborate, and then therefore there is a community. We talked about that gets built up. Now, when you say the leadership is about communication, collaboration, and the community, what is communication? What is so important about the communication? The language which we use at a different level, at different stages. The behavior which we demonstrate during the different stages, and when we become the tribal leaders, and the relationship and the structure in which we operate. Where is the leader? Where are the members? How exactly they create the relationship and how they structure? What are the communications between them is what the tribal leadership is all about. Now, we can go, if I have to sum that up, then the language, behavior, the relationship structure, it creates a better organization. Better organization for better performance, better services. Very interestingly, very few sick leave will be there if you have created the community practices like this. So that's another thing which has been seen. And you will also that the outcome which you have developed, their parameters are going to be very significantly improved. So that's the power of um, this work. And what is not a tribal leadership is that attitude. It's not about belief, it's about action, it's about working together, developing that relationship. It cannot happen from the mind. It is a felt experience. If you talk about the tribal leadership, it's felt that we feel about each other. Barcelona team, which we talked about, they feel about each other. They feel the pride, sense of belonging next to that particular group. And if you start looking at the attitude, belief, and the cognitions, then we are going to fall back, and we'll talk about in the next slide to the stage one. And what it talks about is in this particular book, if you talk about, it talks about that how do you become the tribal leader, and says that there is a gradual progression from stage 1 to 5. The first stage, generally the professionals and the organizations, people are very limited of the first stage. We talked about the 2% of the people are of that part. Actually, they are gangsters or or the people who are trying to survive are those kind of people. They feel that the life sucks. They use a, a language which is street language, life sucks, or F words, or the break, or can't, and cut, or whatever, and all of that, right? Their behavior is despairing hostility. And I have seen many of the guys, and I have also seen couple of guys in my organizations, in the previous organizations, couple of guys, right? But generally, you don't see that. But the next stage where my life sucks, right? Actually, he is feeling that his life is getting sucked. The context, the organization, or the boss is creating that particular feeling for this particular group of the people. And this is a very large number in organizations, 25%, right? Boss XYZ, boss is like this, right? Because of that, my life is sucked, right? I tried and I could not get there. My life is sucked. I can't. Give up, quit, sucks. All this kind of mental model is getting built. And they feel that they are the victim of the circumstances, they are victim of the context in which they are operating. The third one is that I am great, you are not. And when I do this, and a very nice picture, probably I would have put together the president of the previous president of America, right? He is kind of that guy, right? So he is I, me, my job, did so, and whatnot, right? Lone warriors. So he will sit at the center, and everybody is him. So he's creating multiple of Trump. He's creating that particular hub and spoke kind of the model. And the fourth one, where really the positivity starts, the impact happens. We are great, you are not. So it is not talking about, if you look at the stage 3, where I am great, you are not, it's the internal conflict is very high. There is an internal tussle going on. I am good, you are not good. That all that resources are consumed by this, and I have to tell you what you're supposed to do and what not. In the stage 4, the challenges shift to the others. We are great and they are not. And then if you look at that Barcelona's, or you look at this our own team, the hockey team, which they say that we are great and they are not, right? We team do, they can do it, and all the stuff. So they start feeling the pride that I'm part of the Indian hockey team. I'm part of this particular football team, or our part of this particular value stream team. They start feeling the pride of it, right? And they are not. It shifts outside. Now, the greatest thing to happen, and which usually you will baseline at the stage 4, and then sometime you'll go to the stage 5, where the great things happens. Steve Jobs, Warren Buffett, Nelson Mandela, right? The other guys like that, and there are a number of leaders, or Microsoft, Bill Gates. All of them are not competing with any other organization. However, they will create the baseline of the stage 4, and they will go sometime for the innovations. They are looking at the larger cause. They wanted to take out the ills of the society. We are great, and so are they. And our job is to remove the ills of the society. And there are a number of organizations, and if you look at Bill Gates, he said, let's remove the different kind of challenges which is happening across the globe, right? Or there was a leader who was trying to, in the 70s, American president who was trying to provide the food to the globe, to the world, right? India also have received some part of it. So they are not competing with other entity or organization. They are trying to resolve the issues of the larger society, the world at large, right? And that's the thing which they do. Now, how do you go about it? What do you do about it? If you are a leader, you wanted to create a tribe leadership, you wanted to create the community like this, then you have to experience the language, the people, the language they speak. And then if you wanted to move from the 2 to 5, you can't do that. You can't move 2 to 4. You can only move from the 2 to 3. And even in the 2, as this book talks about, there are 3 stages of the 2. There are 3 stages in the 3. There are 3 stages in the 4. And then gradually that you need to move. You have to learn the rituals and ceremonies of each and every stage of the tribal leadership. And each and every time when you do, the power of listening comes into the play. You need to listen to them. What you hear, what you see, and what it feels like. And accordingly, this book provides a lot of tools that you can use it. And I think at the sort of the time you'll not be able to do that. Right? You have to spot stage of spotting. You have to do that. And then when you start moving forward, and the stage 4, when you come, the value becomes the noble cause becomes the power. What is that the value we are trying to operate on? So if you look at the failure of the agile or the any other transformation, because we are not value oriented, the leaders are not value oriented, and we do not have the what is the noble cause for what we are doing this transformation. It's not just to make money. What is the noble cause? Why are we doing what we are doing? Right? So that the purpose, the noble cause, I mean, he talks about noble cause, not the purpose. I would say the simple is that what is the larger purpose that for which you are doing this transformation? That needs to be communicated to all the members who wants to become the part of this tribe, right? And then you, if you want to make this transformation happen, you need to stage yourself, park yourself at the stage 4. That should become your operating systems when you start working. Now come back to Hari Krishna, your question of dyad and the triad. Very powerful, isn't it? So what
Yeah.
is dyad according to you? What is dyad?
That is essentially two people. Two
Right,
people working on a specific, it's pairing, right? People who is pairing for an initiative, a specific
mm,
thing that you would actually do.
right,
Triad is essentially three people coming together, or a small subset of a team who will drive certain initiative over a period
sure.
of time.
Let's just step back into the dyad, right? You said that between the two people. And then when you are creating the tribe, when you are creating this public, that there is a transparency required, right? There is a third view is required. So in the dyad, what happens? We have a privacy, right? We might expose our vulnerability to each other, but this is completely private to each other, right? We may help each other, but we'll not be able to see the views which observer can see that,
Yeah.
right? But even we disagree after the conversation afterwards, we are safe because we have warned against each other. In the privacy of the dad, no one can check what got concocted, what got missed out, right? And therefore, we have to move. And there was another book which I was talking about. How do you create a private life to a public life, right? How do you create that? And there is a book which is based upon ethics and authenticity, authentic leadership. It talks about that how do you move from the private life to the public life to create the authenticity.
Yeah.
In the triad, if you look at what happens is that three people creates a different dynamics, right? It is the third person who observes and brings the culture or the language between these two people, because I'm not able to see that when I'm in a communication with, right? Here we are three people, and that is another reason why I said, Hari Krishna, why don't you hold on here, right? Because that the triad can be created, though I'm speaking a lot at the moment, right? And it says that he brings the whole organization, the systemic view. I don't know, some people have gone through the ORAC, and that I did went through the team coaching program called the complex systems approach for team coaching. The third person brings the third eye, the observer,
Yeah.
or it is spoken in the gestalt as well. The third person is an observer. He's observing the behavior as well as the language or the culture of both of us, where exactly we are operating from, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, whatever we're using for each other, right? And this I and you position gets shifted because I can get observed. What is fascinates me is, when I read this book few years back and started working with one of the clients, for the consulting work, I will take one of my guys who had just joined my organization. We are a small organization, and I will take him along with me to go to this. He said, "Why are you taking me?" Okay. And then he said, "No," I said, "Please come over." Right. And he comes over. And you know Anand, right? So then Anand will say, "Akhil, come and join." Right. So when we go three people, one becomes the observer. And once we come back, we'll talk about, did you notice what is that you have been speaking about? How did you interacted with him and what has happened? So it is also a feedback mechanism.
Yeah.
It also provides you the space to grow yourself when you are in the new situations with a similar or similar situations, right? It's a reflections point, and that we miss out because we have a fear of exposing ourselves. We have a fear to become the vulnerable, right? I believe, Hari Krishna, when I was reading this, that if you provide the value about what happens in the third party, I do some activities. In our DevOps coach program, we have started doing that. We'll give the case study. We'll say, okay, all of you take your view.
Yeah.
Now, all of you look at the different views, you'll find that the depth of that, what is this case study is all about, right? And once they prepare after that, oh my goodness, I never thought of this. I never thought of this, right? And that's the power of the triad in my mind. You can typically find out the bad behaviors of the others. It just stops the gossiping because the two people are there, they will do gossips, right? They will go all over the place. They will not focus on to what is supposed to be done, right? And yeah, any comments of yours? That's what
Uh,
I believe in the triad can do.
Yeah, that is what I said. If you have the proper value system, see again, it is a conflict of value system that happens when you're trying to do any transformation. So you need to be clear about the value system that we wanted to, new value system that you want to install in this
Mm,
organization, and that should be the point of. And you may have conflicts of value systems that happens. Take a
yeah.
simple example of, I will take it as a Scrum team.
Mm,
The Scrum has certain values, and then we have a set of values. If we are trying to do scaling, you have a different
mm,
set of values,
yeah.
and then we have another set of values of the organization itself. So
Yeah.
what is the organization that they are in a triadic relationship? If you are looking at somebody who is a Scrum master, somebody who is trying to do as a coach for doing the transformation for scaling, or a middle manager, or somebody who is sitting at the top with the executive council, they value the organization values more
Mm,
compared to the rest of the values. So you have to be, if you are in the middle of it and trying to kind of doing an enterprise transformation or to agility, you need to understand how this works. The equations between different values being operated on works.
mm,
That is a natural triad if you look at from my perspective.
yeah.
Similarly, say a new value system that you want to implement, you need to first coach on to the people who are actually getting to this, to the transformation, to the new value system that we wanted to go to. Then you create triads and then create initiatives. When I say initiative, it will be probably a small, a significant thing that you want to achieve in a shorter period of time. That is challenging. That is really pushing them really hard to achieve something significant for the set of people that you're bringing as a triad. So if, and then give them the proper base for them to really operate on, without which anyway they'll fall apart. But at least if you are doing that, this will be, as you said, you will not be a private, one-to-one conversation, but you would
Yeah.
rather be always, I would say, open to somebody third party observing you every time.
Right. Right. And that's, see, it's very beautiful you said that, right? So I'm bringing my values, and somebody else is bringing that value.
Yeah.
So we are in our and beautifully I put together the fish. So the fish in the water, talking to another fish in the water, they don't know whether they're in the water,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So you very beautifully you said that the third person will be able to observe the conflict of the values between these two,
Yeah.
right? And um, and when you have the third perspective, the power of it is that you will be able to find out the new ideas, new innovation can happen. You can enhance the trust between both of them because he is observing and providing you where exactly that conflict is happening, right? So you know from last so many years, 2014 onwards, I have never gone to any meeting without having the third person with me.
Wow.
And I do not go. And you have seen it, Hari. When we were talking to you, always Anand, Akhil, and Saras will also join and talk to you, right? So, um, what he does is he talks about the three steps to take a triadic relationships. First, every single time, even if you're meeting your colleague, you can invite a third person. I'm going to meet Hari. Why don't you join me? And you will see a very different kind of relations will emerge. For every project which we start, let's make sure that there are two others who joins us. Let's create a triad that supports all the three relationships and the project. So there is a relationship which is getting built. Um, there is another thing which happens. So if you are in the stage 3 and want to get out of the hub and a spoke model, just have the triad. Automatically you'll move from the stage 3 to stage 4 because you have the feedback, you understand that it's not going to work, right? So that's another thing which I look at the going to happen. Each one, somebody comes with the problems or the issues, please don't try to solve. So why don't you invite somebody else who can also look at this particular problem? So that's another thing to do. Whenever somebody is having the problem, let's not solve the issue, right? So it's a beautiful thing. Even if you can do a co-coaching for one particular client of yours, and you will see a very different kind of a dynamics that's going to play.
Yeah.
So he talks about that very clearly that when you start trying to solve the problem, and I have tried out doing the coaching, and Maya and Anand tried to do coaching for one person, and it happened. It worked out really really well for one of us. I think way back in 2006 and 2017. We'd worked together. It worked really really well. Okay. Um, for me, the other powerful part of this learning is about um, relationship is very beautifully defined. Very different kind of relationship you start experiencing when we have a three people, right? Indeed, at one point of time, I was very afraid of having three people. Because I do not want to expose myself. I do not want to be vulnerable and all of that, right? When I started experiencing it, then it became easier, right? So that's
Exactly.
my experience as well, okay? Because at that point of time, I believe I was not taking the accountability. So the triads create the accountability, right? It creates a shared accountabilities, shared purpose, and it is good for problem solving, creating the accountability inside the business and outside the business. Yeah, I think we can talk about more the next time. We have another 6 minutes left, and when I was doing this, any questions you want to ask, or any views which you want to share before we wrap up the session?
I think it is, as you rightly put, Akhilesh, it is like something like supervision in coaching, right? Very similar to that, where you would have somebody watching over you when you're working in a triadic relationship with the right set of values, so that you would always, and it will create the vulnerability. Well, vulnerability is very important to create the mindset of something that you want to make a difference
Yeah,
into the initiative that you're working for. So
yeah.
that, from my perspective, is very important in this whole concept.
Absolutely, absolutely. So the when you do a coaching, you're not doing coaching together, right? One is becoming observer of the coach and also the client, right? And then he shifts. And of course, when you are getting this kind of relationship, you need to sit together to develop the contract. How are we going to engage with each other when we are in this particular relationships? That's another important thing that we need to think through. Um,
And also another point there, because I think we don't want to confuse the people who would be looking at the recording, because there would be people who would be watching this. It takes a lot for two people to coach together. It's not something like, okay, I and you say that, okay, I'll ask this question number one, Hari, you can ask question number two, and then I'll come back, I can ask question number three, right?
Yeah.
So then it becomes an interview rather than a coaching conversation. So uh, how well you are connected with the with your partner, if I may call that to be so, and what is the strength of your relationship. That is one aspect to look at. And the other aspect is also not to confuse the coaching itself, because when you have a coachee, and being in a coach's position myself more often than not, you are used to a certain style of questioning.
Yeah,
Even in leadership also, right? You will see that you are very comfortable with a certain style of communication, certain style of leadership, right? Certain style of dealing that you are comfortable with. And when suddenly there is another person coming in, what is happening with you as a coachee? Are you comfortable to be in that position of having, another person coming in with an entirely different style of approach, or different style of communication, and different style of questioning? There could be many things coming through, right? That's another point of view. And you also brought in the vulnerability part. What is the level of relationship and trust you have with the people in the room at that point in time? Do I carry the same level of trust I would have with Akhil with someone else? We don't know, right? Until unless we don't know that person whom we are dealing with. So there are n number of elements to be worried about and cared about before we get into this, the triad situation in in
exactly.
in any context. I'm not, of course, coaching is one of the examples, but even in an organizational context, and referring back to your point as well, that okay, you are looking at team values or scrum values rather than team values, because always scrum values are not equal to team values,
Exactly.
right? So I'm bringing forth the value again here. From a systemic point of view, you are talking about a systemic triad of values that are coming from a framework that the teams are following, and then you are talking about organizational values, and probably the values at a group level, right?
Exactly.
Which are driven by certain leaders within the group. So those are again a triad of systemic values that are coming together. But then what happens in the end, what we have seen, and you are part of the program as well, that and we discussed this point, until unless we are not clear about how we exhibit those values, it doesn't matter
True. In the sense, how authentic you are in this
how
whole.
authentic you are, because ultimately then it becomes your value you are exhibiting. You really don't care about what the values that are expected of you are,
Yeah.
right? And the level of relativity you have with those values, how much of a buy-in does the leadership take when you are trying to define values for the organization?
Yeah.
Does it happen that okay, in the exco meeting, all the 5 or 10 leaders sit together and say this is the value we want to display? Yes, perfectly okay. Then how does that value relate to the organizational strategies and objectives? How is it driving those? How is it driving the organizational practices? How is it driving the policies that are setting up in the organization? How is it related to them, right? So those elements are again quite important enough for us to think about as tribal leaders. And I hope in the next session that Akhil would put his the big hat of wisdom on, and he would definitely explore more of the iceberg that we are touching upon.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only my recommendation is based upon this book and interactions with others, and develop a contract. This is how exactly we are going to get into the conversation. How are
Yeah.
we going to operate, right? And explore what happens. And once you come back again, Nivarti, go back to our previous book, which we did a review. The
Did we lose Akhil?
Yeah, I think he's back now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Akhil, you froze for probably few seconds.
Yes, I was saying that when we go for these particular discussions or the problem solving exercises and whatnot, we need to come back and pause and think through, right? We need to pause. We are just moving from one to the other, not reflecting on what's happening. The observer is there, he has observed, but still we are in a dialect, we're in a triad. Observer is there, but what he has done, what value is bringing it, we are not able to connect it back, right? So you need to have that particular contract in place, that agreement, that how are we going to do, what reflections we are going to take place after the sessions, after the problem is resolved, or we have worked out on something. Yeah. And even going forward, there was another question which you all have put together, that what books you recommend apart from this. Yeah.
Yeah.
When I looked at the number of books, I I feel that I don't know whether you have that particular slide available, but then yeah. Um, so there is a book called Tribes, written by Seth Godin.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful book to read about. He has written The Purple Cow, which is another great book.
I'm just coming up with the slide, Akhil. Give me.
Another book called The Smart Tribes, How Team Becomes Brilliant Together. So I think it's another good book to read. Yeah. And then, since we are talking about the tribes, nothing but the team of teams, isn't it? So tribes are nothing but teams of the teams. So
Yeah.
definitely, that book would recommend. And when you have run that particular book, you can look at the scaling up the excellence. Is an amazingly great book, and I would only suggest that book when you have read the team of the teams and the tribes. If you want to just read independently, read the Joy Inc. Wow, a great book, right? So to do that. Now, when you're talking about the triads, and we are talking about this tribes and the community-based leadership, there is another book which is very powerful, the Hymnocracy, right? And it's a lot of organizations across the globe have started following it. Indeed, the Japo itself have started, they use the hymnocracy in that organization. Yeah. So I would suggest that these are the books that you can look at. If you have additional books requirements, definitely you can drop a mail to Nivarti and myself, and we will give you some more books to you to read. Yeah. Um, yes, and the additional book, if you want, definitely you can read The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, or there is another book called Leading Outside the Lines. It's written by uh, um, the same people who have written the team coaching book, um, um, uh, and it is extremely good. If you're looking at the big picture, which you talked about, what is the real cause that you are wanted to operate, it's a great book to read, right? Or if you wanted to look at from the different side, there is a book called Stop the Drama, which is taking at the workplace. Stop the drama, Stop Workplace Drama. The book name is Stop Workplace Drama. It's another book to look at if you want to build the tribes in your organization. I think more than enough, isn't it? 7-8 books.
Yeah, I think you will list out another 100 books. I think we will stop here
Yeah.
for people to consume, because you are listing out so many books which probably I'll not be able to read in a year. So, what we will definitely look forward to here is more, you know, learnings from you, as from your the big, large, huge, big book library for in future as well. Probably we'll come back in a fortnight from now again with our next book to present. Or we will also think about if we want to continue this session and extend our discussion on tribal leadership for one more session. to dig a little bit more deeper into it. Thank you all for joining again. Wish you
Maybe we
all.
can make it interactive sessions next time, the workshop or style of going through this particular book and doing some exercises together. So we
Yeah.
can
Yeah,
look at that as well.
that's an idea we did discuss, Akhil. I think we will evolve. This is our just second session. So, like organizations, we are also experimenting. What could work well, and
Mm.
it's part of experimentation. So we will evolve, and we will.
Lakshman, if you want to, any comments which you have before we wrap up, thank you so much to join us. We feel excited that we are 4 people now.
Yeah.
We'll probably get Lakshman. I'm not able to wait a minute. Let me. I know Lakshman quite well. Let me invite Lakshman onto the stage. Lakshman, maybe you can accept our invite to join to the stage.
Hi everyone. Hi Nivati. I'm sorry I missed on the time. I thought it's 8:30 to 9:30, and I joined a
Okay,
bit late.
no worries. We'll post the recording
Definitely. Sure,
on
sure.
video.
Okay.
But
What?
Akhil and Hari to introduce Lakshman. Lakshman has been my coach for Lego Serious Play. So he was the one who introduced me to Lego,
Yeah.
and a great ambassador for LSP in India. And he has brought LSP to quite long distance from where he started. And the best part is his whole family is on it. So he's supported by his father, mother, and his wife, which is great to see. From a passion perspective, the whole family is on that journey, and he's expanding LSP in India quite a bit, and of course represents India in all the forums across the globe. So great ambassador for LSP. Thanks, Lakshman, for joining us here.
Thank you. Thanks, Nivati. Thanks for having here. And it was wonderful listening to you, Akhilesh, in the last part that I joined. I'm going to go back and relook at the recording.
And Lakshman, we would love to have one day you talk about LSP here, and present
Definitely.
some snippets together to the world, to let them know what it means and how it helps.
Sure. Happy to do that. We can plan it up.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, and have a great night. We'll come back and see you in a fortnight. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you. Thanks.
Take
Bye.
care.